There's a part of you that you keep hidden. You don't share it with your friends, your partner, or even yourself. You act like it doesn't exist. You laugh it off, judge it, or scroll past it online. But when the world goes quiet, late at night, when no one's watching, it starts to whisper. It's raw, unfiltered desire, confusing, intense. Not the kind of desire you see in romantic movies or discuss over coffee. This isn't about love. It's not even just about sex. It's about power, control, submission, shame, fantasy, and fear. Master Shi Heng Yi didn't shy away from this part of the human psyche. He called it what it is, the sexual shadow. He didn't label it as evil or something to be erased. Instead, he said something far more unsettling: it must be integrated. If you ignore your sexual shadow, it doesn't vanish, it finds you. It shows up in ways you can't predict, through obsession, addiction, ruined relationships, emotional numbness, or cycles of shame that keep repeating no matter how hard you try to break free. The sexual shadow isn't just about suppressed lust. It's every part of your sexuality you were taught was wrong, dirty, dangerous, or unworthy of love. It's the desire you buried, the fantasy you judged, the vulnerability you never let yourself feel. This shadow lives deep in your psyche, underground, and ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It waits. It grows. And eventually, it surfaces in ways that unsettle you. Maybe you lash out at someone who sparks desire in you. Maybe you chase fleeting encounters because real intimacy feels too risky. Maybe you crave dominance or submission and hate yourself for it. Maybe you mistake love for performance, or maybe you feel nothing during sex, or worse, you feel nothing at all. You think something's wrong with you. You call it a problem, a dysfunction. But Master E would say it's not a flaw, it's disconnection. You're not broken, you're divided. The part of you that you've exiled, the part you've called shameful or wrong, has become your shadow. It's not just hiding, it's trying to come back. Your sexual shadow is where your deepest wounds collide with your rawest instincts. It's where repression twists into distortion, where shame fuels obsession, where the parts of you that were never loved become dangerous. Shi warned that what you don't bring into awareness will return as fate. And nothing returns with more force than repressed sexual energy, because it's not just energy, it's identity. It's longing. It's the most honest part of your humanity trying to break through. Most people don't talk about it. Not in therapy, not in spiritual circles, not even in their own minds. They lock it away because it doesn't fit the image they're trying to uphold: the good person, the pure soul, the enlightened one, the emotionally healed, mentally evolved, morally flawless version of themselves. But behind that facade, the shadow burns. The more you suppress it, the more power it gains. You see it in fantasies you didn't choose but can't shake. In dreams that leave you rattled. In relationships where you play roles you don't understand. In guilt that creeps in when you try to feel pleasure. In the quiet panic when someone sees too much of you. Because the sexual shadow isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a deafening silence, a disconnection so deep it feels normal. You call it low libido, stress, or maturity. But it's grief. Grief for the parts of you that were never allowed to exist. Desire that never had words, attraction that never had a home, power that was always deemed too much. Shi Heng Yi didn't say the shadow should be obeyed. He said it should be known, seen, invited in, and understood. Because when you start that conversation, something shifts. You stop fearing yourself. You stop apologizing for being human. And you begin the terrifying, beautiful process of becoming whole. This isn't about giving in to every impulse. It's about understanding where those impulses come from, what they're trying to tell you, what part of you they're trying to awaken. Beneath your sexual shadow lies something sacred, your unmet need for wholeness. Not just physical wholeness, but emotional, energetic, and soul-level integration. Your sexual shadow isn't proof that you're flawed, it's proof that you're fragmented. And the path to reclaiming those pieces starts with one honest question: what part of your desire have you buried, and what has it cost you to keep it hidden? That question is the first crack in the shell. Your sexual shadow isn't your enemy, it's the part of you that wants to come home. There's a reason you were taught to hide it. It wasn't just your parents, religion, or culture, it's the way your psyche works. Master Yi, like others before him, believed the human mind doesn't grow as one seamless whole. It splits. It fragments. It builds walls to survive. When you're young, anything that feels unsafe, unacceptable, or socially risky gets shoved underground. This isn't a mistake, it's a defense mechanism. Your ego buries what it thinks won't help you navigate the world, and it protects what it believes will keep you safe. When it comes to sexuality, this fragmentation often happens early and with force. Desire isn't just about sex, it's about instinct, expression, vulnerability, and control. It's the first time a child feels something powerful that they can't name. If that energy is met with shame, punishment, or silence, it gets severed. The child learns, this part of me isn't safe. This part of me is bad. This part of me must stay hidden. But what's hidden doesn't vanish, it mutates. Shi Yi warned that anything buried in the unconscious will eventually resurface, but not in its original form. It returns as fear, compulsion, or projection. The unconscious doesn't follow logic. It speaks in symbols, through attraction, revulsion, fantasy, and discomfort. It projects your unclaimed sexual energy onto others. You might become obsessed with people who embody the parts of yourself you've disowned. You'll judge them, desire them, hate them, or try to fix them. But what you're really doing is trying to reclaim yourself. This is the trap of projection. Your psyche is trying to complete itself through others. You think it's about them, the person you can't stop thinking about, the one you're drawn to and resent, the ones you envy or quietly shame. It's not. It's about you. Shi Heng Yi said that what irritates or unsettles us about others can guide us to understand ourselves, especially when it comes to sexual reactions. If someone makes you uncomfortable, ask, what are they expressing that I've suppressed? Is it freedom? Dominance? Softness? Raw need? Pleasure without guilt? Whatever it is, it's yours too, it's just trapped in your shadow. As long as it stays buried, you won't be free. Repression doesn't lead to virtue, it leads to fragmentation. You become half alive. You smile politely, say the right things, perform emotional intelligence, but beneath it all, something is suffocating. Your body remembers what your mind denies. It aches in silence. It sends signals. It triggers you when you least expect it. Desire doesn't fade just because you've trained yourself to ignore it, it becomes shadow-bound. The deeper it hides, the more extreme it gets. That's why so many people live double lives, one clean, curated, and rational, the other chaotic, compulsive, and full of contradictions they can't explain. This isn't hypocrisy, it's disconnection. The more you're cut off from your shadow, the more power it holds over you. Master Yi described the shadow as a narrow door, a tight passage that everyone must face to reach wholeness. It's painful, but on the other side is vitality, your energy, your aliveness, your capacity to connect, create, and feel joy without shame. The hidden truth is that most people aren't tired from physical exhaustion, they're drained from constantly suppressing themselves. The effort to always seem appropriate, to want appropriately, to feel appropriately, it empties the soul. Shi Yi saw this in those he guided. He said what we call struggle is often just the result of avoiding the real work, facing the parts of ourselves we've been taught to fear. So how do you begin? Not by indulging every urge, not by controlling or silencing them either, but by becoming aware. Sit with the parts of you that make you uneasy. Ask, where did I learn to fear this part of myself? Who told me it was wrong? What would happen if I allowed myself to feel it, not act on it, not push it away, but just feel it? That's where integration starts. Not by judging the shadow, not by glorifying it, but by building a relationship with it. Until you do, your sexual energy will stay fragmented, leaking out in ways you can't control: confusion, guilt, sabotage, silence. But when you start to name it, understand it, and bring it into consciousness, it transforms. It becomes power, not domination, but agency. Not performance, but presence. Not emptiness, but embodiment. You stop chasing things to feel whole. You stop suppressing things to feel safe. You stand in your full self, raw, honest, integrated. Shi Heng Yi said wholeness isn't perfection. It's the union of opposites, and nowhere is that union more vital than in how you experience your desire. You're not wrong for wanting. You're not broken for feeling. But you're at risk if you keep splitting yourself between who you are and who you think you should be. The shadow won't stay quiet forever. If you don't open the door, it will break through the wall. Let it speak now, gently, before it returns louder, before it comes back as fate. You might think you're in control, that you choose who you're drawn to, who you love, who you push away, who you chase. But beneath every choice is a map you didn't create, drawn from silence, shame, childhood, culture, trauma, and absence. Master Yi warned that what we don't make conscious becomes fate, and nowhere is this truer than in your sexuality. You can build a beautiful life on the surface, a career, a partner, a routine, a smile, but if your sexual shadow remains buried, that life will start to feel foreign. You'll wake up next to someone you don't feel. You'll touch without presence. You'll stay in relationships that numb you and destroy the ones that make you feel too much. You'll mistake safety for boredom. You'll run from depth because it reminds you of pain. You'll crave what wounds you and reject what heals you, and you won't know why. But Shi Yi would say it's because you haven't faced your shadow. When you refuse to meet it, you don't just become detached, you become divided. A divided self creates divided relationships. You'll be physically there but emotionally gone, sexually active but psychologically shut down. You'll smile during intimacy while something inside you fades. Your partner will sense it. They won't know what's missing, but they'll feel the void. They'll blame themselves, question their worth. But they're just standing in the presence of someone who hasn't faced themselves. This is how the sexual shadow ruins relationships, not with chaos, but with emptiness. You can't give what you haven't reclaimed. You can't connect if you're split in two. You can't touch another soul if you're still afraid of your own. The scariest part? People adapt to this. They make numbness normal. They call it stability, maturity. They convince themselves the fire that once burned in them was just youth. But deep down, they know they buried something real. No performance can replace it. This is the hidden cost of an unclaimed sexual shadow. You don't just lose passion, you lose presence. And when presence fades, love becomes maintenance. The damage doesn't stop there. It seeps into how you move through the world, your creativity, your spiritual life, your sense of purpose. Shi Heng Yi said repressing sexuality leads to psychic splitting, not just in intimacy but in the soul. Sexual energy isn't just physical, it's symbolic, archetypal. It's the raw creative force of your being trying to flow through you. When it's blocked, everything stalls. You procrastinate. You overthink. You numb. You fantasize instead of act. You withhold instead of express. It feels logical, reasonable, but it's not reason, it's resistance. You're resisting life itself. The cost of that resistance is subtle at first, but over time, it becomes everything. You don't recognize your own eyes in the mirror. Your voice feels like it belongs to someone else. You stop expecting anything extraordinary from life. You call it burnout or fatigue, but Shi Heng Yi would call it disintegration. You're being undone by your own refusal to feel. Society only makes it worse. We live in a world that's hypersexualized yet emotionally barren. Sexuality is used to sell, to grab attention, to drive clicks, but we rarely sit with its truth. We don't ask why we chase it endlessly but feel unfulfilled, why we talk about it loudly but feel shame quietly, why we desire so intensely but touch each other like we're fragile. This disconnect isn't an accident. Society profits from your confusion. The more you're cut off from your inner world, the easier you are to manipulate, monetize, distract. Your shadow becomes a commodity, and you stay stuck, half awake, half alive. But Master Yi didn't point to despair. He pointed to confrontation. Facing your sexual shadow is the start of transformation. Reclaiming it isn't just about healing wounds, it's about reclaiming your power. When you truly know what moves you, you can't be controlled. You stop craving empty validation. You stop settling for lifeless intimacy. You stop shrinking your desires to make others comfortable. You stop using sexuality as a performance and start living it as presence. But this requires courage. You must go through the fire, grieve the years you betrayed yourself, feel the desires you've never spoken, admit you've been living a life that's only half yours. That's not weakness or regression, it's the first step toward wholeness. What the world calls darkness, Shi Heng Yi called potential. The moment you turn toward your shadow, your real life begins, not the one built on denial, not the one curated for others, but the one waiting beneath it all. Your sexual shadow doesn't need to be fixed, it needs to be faced. The only thing more dangerous than your desire is your refusal to meet it. You've spent years keeping this part of you in the dark. Maybe you thought it would protect you. Maybe you were told it was the right thing, to be clean, good, safe. But the part you've buried, silenced, hidden, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's waiting, not to harm you or control you, but to be seen. Your sexual shadow isn't evil, it's unintegrated life, unclaimed power, unmet truth. It's not going anywhere. You can keep hiding, or you can turn around and face what's been following you. The choice is simple but not easy. Shi Heng Yi believed the path to wholeness starts with awareness, not action. You don't need to act on every impulse, but you do need to listen to them. What are they saying? Where do they come from? What part of you have you locked away? This isn't about indulging or suppressing, it's about understanding. When you begin to see your shadow, it stops being a threat. It becomes a guide. It shows you where you've been split, where you've been wounded, where you've been taught to fear yourself. And it points you toward integration. This process isn't clean or comfortable. It's raw, messy, human. You'll feel things you've avoided for years, shame, longing, anger, grief. But you'll also feel something else, aliveness. The energy that's been trapped in your shadow starts to move again. It becomes creativity, connection, joy. Not the kind filtered through guilt or performance, but the kind that feels like you're fully here, fully you. Master Yi said the shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door. It's painful to pass through, but on the other side is your vitality, the part of you that knows how to want, how to feel, how to live without apology. The world will tell you to keep hiding. It will tell you to stay safe, to stay small, to stay acceptable. But your shadow knows better. It's been waiting for you to listen, to stop running, to stop pretending. It's not asking for your perfection, it's asking for your presence. And when you give it, everything changes. You stop living a half-life. You stop performing wholeness and start embodying it. The sexual shadow isn't your flaw, it's your fire. Let it burn. The fire of your sexual shadow isn't something to fear, it's the spark of your aliveness, waiting to be reclaimed. Shi Heng Yi taught that facing the shadow isn't about becoming reckless or surrendering to every urge, it's about recognizing what's been buried and giving it a voice. Your shadow holds the pieces of you that were deemed too much, too wild, too dangerous to exist. But those pieces aren't flaws, they're your vitality, your creativity, your capacity to connect deeply with yourself and others. When you ignore them, you don't just lose passion, you lose presence. You lose the ability to show up fully in your life. This disconnection doesn't just affect your relationships or your intimacy, it shapes how you move through the world. Shi Heng Yi saw that when sexual energy is repressed, it doesn't just vanish, it distorts everything else. It dims your creativity, dulls your sense of purpose, and saps your spiritual life. Sexual energy isn't just about physical desire, it's the raw, primal force of your being. It's the drive to create, to express, to feel alive. When it's blocked, you start to stagnate. You might procrastinate, overthink, or retreat into fantasies instead of taking action. You might withhold your truth instead of sharing it. It feels rational, but it's resistance, a refusal to let life flow through you. The cost of this resistance builds slowly, invisibly, until it's all you know. You call it stress, exhaustion, or just life. But Master Yi would call it a kind of death, a slow erosion of your aliveness. You stop expecting joy. You stop seeking depth. You settle for a version of yourself that's polished but empty. Society encourages this. It bombards you with images of sexuality while teaching you to fear its truth. It sells desire but shames authenticity. It keeps you chasing surface-level fixes, new relationships, new distractions, new ways to numb, while your shadow grows louder, demanding to be heard. But Shi Heng Yi offered a way through, not around. He said transformation begins when you stop running and turn toward your shadow. This doesn't mean acting on every impulse, it means listening to them. What are they telling you? What part of you have you silenced? What desire have you judged as wrong or unworthy? The moment you start asking these questions, the shadow begins to lose its grip. It stops being a force that controls you and becomes a guide that leads you back to yourself. This is the power of awareness. It turns chaos into clarity, shame into strength, disconnection into embodiment. The process is uncomfortable. You'll face things you've avoided for years, guilt over desires you were taught to reject, grief for the parts of you that were never allowed to breathe, anger at the systems that told you to hide. But you'll also find something else, freedom. The freedom to want without apology, to feel without fear, to exist without splitting yourself in two. Shi Heng Yi said the shadow isn't just where your wounds live, it's where your potential waits. When you reclaim it, you reclaim your energy, your voice, your ability to live fully. This isn't a quick fix. It's not about a single moment of clarity or a sudden breakthrough. It's a practice, a commitment to keep showing up for yourself, to keep listening to the parts you've ignored. Every time you name a desire, every time you question a shame, every time you let yourself feel without judgment, you take a step toward wholeness. You stop living for approval. You stop shaping your desires to fit someone else's mold. You start to feel what it's like to be fully human, messy, raw, alive. The world will keep pulling you toward disconnection. It will tempt you with distractions, shame you into silence, reward you for staying small. But your shadow knows better. It's not trying to destroy you, it's trying to wake you up. Shi Heng Yi said the path to wholeness is through the narrow door of the shadow, where pain and potential meet. Step through it. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours. Because the life you're meant to live, the one that feels real, vibrant, unfiltered, is waiting on the other side. Your sexual shadow isn't just a personal struggle, it's a universal one, shaped by forces beyond your control. Shi Heng Yi taught that the psyche fragments early, splitting off parts of itself to survive. When it comes to sexuality, this happens with brutal precision. As a child, you felt desires, raw, unnamed, powerful. If they were met with shame, silence, or punishment, they were buried. Not gone, but hidden. Master Yi said these buried parts don't stay quiet, they become fate. They shape your choices, your attractions, your fears, in ways you don't even see. You think you're choosing who you love, who you reject, who you chase, but beneath it all is a blueprint drawn from childhood, culture, and unhealed wounds. This blueprint runs deep. It's why you might build a perfect life, a partner, a career, a polished exterior, but still feel like a stranger to yourself. You might share a bed with someone but feel alone. You might touch without feeling, love without presence. You might stay in relationships that drain you or sabotage the ones that make you feel alive. You'll confuse safety with stagnation, depth with danger. You'll crave what hurts you and push away what heals you, all because your shadow is pulling strings you haven't acknowledged. Shi Heng Yi warned that an unclaimed shadow doesn't just disrupt intimacy, it fractures your entire being. You can't be fully present anywhere if you're not present with yourself. Your partner feels it, even if they can't name it. They sense the absence, the part of you that's locked away. They might blame themselves, question their worth, but it's not about them, it's about the parts of you you haven't faced. This is how the sexual shadow breaks relationships, not with loud betrayals, but with quiet vacancy. You can't offer what you haven't reclaimed. You can't connect if you're divided. And it doesn't stop there. The shadow seeps into your creativity, your purpose, your joy. Sexual energy is life energy. When it's suppressed, everything dims. You might feel stuck, uninspired, or numb, calling it burnout or age. But Shi Heng Yi would say it's deeper, it's the cost of living half a life. The effort to keep your shadow buried, to want correctly, to feel correctly, drains you. It's why so many feel tired, not from work, but from the constant performance of being good. The world reinforces this, flooding you with sexual images while shaming authentic desire. It keeps you confused, chasing empty thrills or hiding in silence. But there's a way out. Master Yi didn't offer escape, he offered confrontation. Face your shadow. Ask, what have I buried? What am I afraid to feel? What would happen if I let it exist without judgment? This isn't about acting on every impulse, it's about listening. When you do, the shadow stops being a threat and becomes a teacher. It shows you where you've been hurt, where you've been silenced, where you've been taught to fear yourself. And it shows you what's possible, a life where you don't have to hide, where your desires don't shame you, where your presence is whole. This is the truth Shi Heng Yi pointed to: your sexual shadow isn't your enemy, it's your unlived life. It's the power you've disowned, the truth you've silenced, the aliveness waiting to be claimed. You've spent years keeping it in the dark, thinking it would keep you safe. But safety isn't wholeness. Wholeness comes from turning toward what scares you, from letting your shadow speak, from realizing it's not trying to destroy you, it's trying to bring you home. The choice is yours: keep hiding, or face what's been waiting. One path leads to fate. The other leads to freedom. Choose now, before the shadow chooses for you.